Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Media Architecture Biennale 2023. My name is Dave Colangelo, and I am the General Chair of the event. I'm also an assistant professor here in the School of Professional Communication at Toronto Metropolitan University, and I wanted to welcome you all here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do in this opening hour. So I'm going to give a very brief history of the event, a quick overview of the themes, and introduce you to all of the many organizers that and staff that we have helping us with the event. And then I'm going to bring some of our executive committee members and chairs on stage to provide you with a quick recap of the online activities that happened last week, because really the conference already started last week, as many of you saw and participated in, so we're about halfway through now. But first, I'd like to call on Verne Ross, Assistant Professor in the Centre for Indigenous Studies at the University of Toronto, to say a few words of welcome. Verne is from Cote First Nation, which is a Saulteaux Nation belonging to Treaty 4 in Saskatchewan. Verne started his career back in the mid-1980s, working in hospitals in Regina, advocating for all Indigenous families. Verne is the founder of an Indigenous health program situated in the Pasqua Hospital. He has always worked with traditional healers and language interpreters and continues to do this important work within communities. Verne, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Good morning. Ani tanse sego bojo. In my language, we say Anishigo, which is the Solo language. So I welcome all of you here. I like to think of this as our own our community. That's one of my approaches within my own classes that I teach at the U of T. Is really doing more than just a welcoming with my students, but I always like to look at it as a community space here. So having to saying that, maybe you can kind of like get a little closer in that sort of thing, you know, like so we can kind of like really feel like that we're connected here. And but I also want to introduce my Anishinaabe name, Minigu Binishi, meaning nice day, nice bird. And it was given to me by my grandfather out in Saskatchewan. And I carry that name with such pride. Before I begin to do the land acknowledgement, many also like to refer it as a territorial acknowledgement. I'm going to light up the smudge bowl as a way to send us off in a good way and with good minds as well. One of the four sacred medicines that I'm using today is the sage medicine. It's a healing medicine that we use, and it's been with my people for many, many generations. And it is part of the land. Land acknowledgement. Many of us have different interpretation of how we greet the land, how we welcome our Mother Earth. I usually like to start off by saying that land acknowledgement speaks to our stories here. It also speaks to our teachings. It also speaks to our traditions. It also speaks to our 7 grandfather teachings. Humility, bravery, honesty, wisdom, truth, respect, and love. I'll also introduce the other 3 medicines, which is the tobacco, the cedar, the sage, and the wingush, the sweetgrass. They are all part of of land acknowledgement. But I also like to look at our trees. I also like to look at the water, the fire, and the earth. And for this, I am very, truly grateful. But most important is our languages. Not just Anishinaabe languages, but language from all over the world. And acknowledge our students. That is so important. This wonderful university, this is actually my first appearance and honor to actually come and speak to you from Toronto Metropolitan University here. It is located in the Dish with One Spoon territory in Takaranto, the place in the water where the trees are standing. Is one of the reasons why I acknowledge the trees. If any of you ever know that there are male trees and there are female trees, did you guys ever know that? Can you tell the difference? One of these days I'll show you. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe and the Mississaugas and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I also want to say to everyone here, let us give recognition to our voices here, our strong voices, our ideas, and our stories, so we can become the story. Stories can be a big part of our lives. We are reminded that our voices and stories create a positive, enriching learning space for our students, our families, our children, and our youth, our seniors, and for our teachers. Let us not forget our voices that give us our stories, which are part of healing. Listen to each other. Be kind to each other. And most important, help each other out. And I like to always believe that we are teachers here. Let's learn from each other and keep on strengthening each other, especially for the students who need our direction. And appreciate that knowledge. Take that knowledge and handle it with care. Don't cage that knowledge. Share it with others. So everything you have said that, I'm going to ask you is to say like a thank you, and the language is going to be Chimigwech. I don't like to do it alone. I like for all of us to do that here, because that's so important. That's what community is about, is to kind of get that silence, break that silence. So can I have you all stand up? And just repeat after me, because this is going to be all in with the four directions, with those grandmothers and those grandfathers who give us that love, that caring, and that support. And I acknowledge our ancestors who have done so much for us, who sacrificed so much for us. And for that, I am so grateful, and I acknowledge that. So repeat after me, beginning with the east. Miigwech, Chi-miigwech. Chi-miigwech for the south. Chi-miigwech for the west. And Chi-miigwech for the north. This is all for you, my sacred feather. We'll honor all of you here today, and I want you all to have a wonderful day. Chi-miigwech, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Verne, for that. That was very grounding in a lot of ways. So I think a great way for us to start this event. And also, that you spoke about language, community, identity, connection. I think, those are at the heart of what a lot of us do in our work related to media architecture, thinking about who's going to express what, and what are we going to elevate to these architectural scales. So yeah, no, I think that was really great, and it fits right in with a lot of our themes, which I'm going to talk about in a second as well. Thank you. I also want to just say a thank you to one of our executive committee members, James Bird, who helped connect us with Verne, as well as our equity and belonging chairs, Elle Morris and Tiana Osborne, who have been helping to organize as well. Part of what we wanted to do, we discussed this with the equity and belonging chairs, was to donate a portion of the ticket sales to a local Indigenous group. And so Verne helped us connect with the Anishinaabe Health Foundation. And so we're able to donate $1,500 to that organization. So thank you for that. And to all of you, because we're all contributing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the Media Architecture Biennale is. Some of you have had experience with this event in the past, some of you haven't, so I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of do a quick run through of that to situate us and talk a little bit about the themes. Okay, so in terms of what is media architecture, this has been really interesting over the past week to see that it's quite an expansive category. I think really this event started with the Media Facades Festival before it was even a Biennale. And that's really where media architecture started, but it really has expanded as media has expanded into architecture and public spaces, into urban informatics, responsive environments, urban interaction design. In terms of the event, you've already been experiencing a lot of that, but it's always sort of had this format of having multiple tracks, workshops, explorations, and prototypes, which used to be late-breaking works, short papers. We sort of changed that up this year a little bit, and we'll have one of those tracks tomorrow. Symposia, we have 2 of those today. Keynotes, we have 1 of those today, 1 tomorrow. Paper sessions, publications, which will have our launch tonight of 2 publications, and the awards, which we've already done our student awards, but we have our industry awards for tomorrow evening. In terms of what we're trying to do here, support collaboration, knowledge sharing, shape the emerging field of research, industry, and practice. So in many ways, we are the leaders in this field and influencers, and part of this is to share knowledge amongst each other, but also, you know, as Verne said, we have students, we have employees, we have a say in how we shape the urban mediated environment. So there's a responsibility there to connect, to talk to each other, to share ideas, to debate. So I hope we can do some of that here in the next few days. And this is the first time the event is in North America, on Turtle Island. We want to showcase the cultural and technical innovation and knowledge related to media architecture in the global context. So it's nice to look around and see quite a few people from North America here, but also lots of people from other places in the world, so that we can have that mixing going on. And that's a big part of this event, that we really have an international focus. In terms of previous editions, so there was a Media Facades Festival prior to 2010, but the first Biennale was in 2010 and has been happening every 2 years, a little blip where we've gone to odd years now because of that old pandemic that made us delay the Amsterdam event a couple times, and eventually that was fully online. And this is the first hybrid event that we've hosted. Okay, in terms of themes, I'll be quick on these because I think they're part of the event. You know, every keynote, every paper, every award is sort of shaped by these themes in a way. The first and probably most important theme is equity and access. So the question at the heart of this theme is, who is involved in the planning, production, and programming of media architecture, of communicative urban spaces? This project here, the Digital Birthing Tree, won an award at the last Biennale. And it was a project in collaboration with Arup. I think we've got Paul from Arup here today. But most importantly, the Wurundjeri people that are Indigenous to that area of Melbourne were involved at the beginning and throughout the entire process. And so there was knowledge, skill, benefit sharing, you know, engaging with Indigenous architects, not just sort of building something and then saying, okay, well, what communities are here and how do they want to use this thing? That's already, in a lot of ways, too late, right? In terms of the benefits and the connections to communities, especially marginalized communities. So that's one thing that I hope we can think about a little bit in our event. The second theme is disengagement. So this is a picture from the Pioneer Village subway station. That's a newer station on one of the subway lines quite north in Toronto. And a project by Realities United that was installed but was never turned on except for this one day before it was supposed to launch, because the subway authority got cold feet, said that we don't want to have these open sort of kiosks for people to type in words, potentially typing in hate speech, etc. They knew what they were getting, but in the end, they just sort of pulled out at the last minute. So this is just sort of emblematic of this question of engagement and disengagement at different levels, not just at sort of the user level. There's a lot going on there in terms of what Realities United were able to create and their ideas about trust in terms of allowing people to write things, but then how that's sort of being pushed back from the other side, from other organizations. And that gets into our third theme, which we've really, I think, got into with Sherry Dobbins' keynote that was online last week, civic creative commercial. So thinking about how those pieces need to be aligned. And I know, Valentine, you talked about this quite a bit as well yesterday in your workshop. The importance of aligning those values, or thinking about how to bring disparate values together somehow, to hold it together in a sort of delicate balance to do big things. And finally, intermedial media architecture. So thinking about the ways that different forms of media are integrated into architecture, how architecture influences and pops up in VR, AR, or thinking about integrating with Twitter, or the way that maybe hip hop music influences architecture. We have Sekou here to talk about that tomorrow in his keynote. So we'll explore that as well. I'm going to take a second to thank our sponsors before we continue here, because without them, this wouldn't be possible. We've had really great support from Cadillac Fairview, who have also donated some screen space. So out in Yonge and Dundas Square, the largest screen on top of the H&M plate will be playing some student work from TMU. I think 3 minutes every hour for the next few days. Daktronics is here again. They've been a longtime supporter of our event. StrongLED from China. They donated some LEDs for an LED sculpture that we have in College Park. That you can check out. Moment Factory has been amazing. Cheryl's here from Moment Factory to help us shape the event, and you've got lots of other roles too in the event, so we're grateful for that. Arup is sponsoring again, and as you saw with that one project, they're really forward-thinking in terms of working on media architecture projects that do more. And ClearLED, who is a company that has some Canadian connections. So we're grateful for that. We've got some media partners and lots of institutional partners that have been helping as well. So thank you for all of that. And I should also say that this is part of our equity and belonging work that we've integrated into the conference. We have been able to support people in financial need with travel and access support funds. We were able to give out $6,000 this year. So thank you to our sponsors and to all of you for helping to support that. Okay, I'm going to do credits at the beginning, kind of like they used to do in movies, but don't do anymore. Because yeah, we should give thanks, and I'll do credits at the end too. We'll do it at the beginning and the end. But there are a ton of people that have helped to make this happen, and they deserve a lot of credit. My wonderful executive committee, you can read all their names there. There's quite a few of them here as well today. So thank you to all of you, the advisory board that have helped to shape the themes of the conference, and Martin Duval, the previous chair, general chair, couldn't be here, really sort of gave me, I didn't start from zero, he sort of gave me all of his notes and downloaded all of his thoughts onto me so that I could pick up on his work. We have lots of chairs across all of the different tracks, paper chairs, workshop chairs, publications, people helping us publish this on the ACM Digital Library, and Explorations and Prototypes chairs. So take a look at those names, look down at people's name tags, and thank them again for their wonderful work. Industry chairs, awards, more chairs. I told you there's a lot of people involved in this from all over the world that have been helping shape the different parts of the conference. So thank you to all of those people as well. We had a great virtual production staff as well at the online event. So thank you to them. And then our staff and volunteers, they're wearing the blue shirts. They're doing lots of work to help to make sure that your experience is a good one, and you're well fed and well Wi-Fi'd and everything that you need. Okay, let's see how we're doing for time. We're doing pretty good, about half an hour until we take another break. So what I wanted to do at this point was to call on some people that organized and ran some of the online sessions last week, just to come up and briefly summarize, their session. And so I'm going to start with our symposium, one of our symposiums for last week. And so Ian Callender is here. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Architectural History from Brown University, and he's currently pursuing a Master's of Architecture at Columbia. You're an NYC-based artist and designer, exploring the intersection of the built environment and digital tech. You're also a publication chair, and that's what you're going to talk about, because that was the subject of this symposium. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, and here you go.
Thank you so much, Dave. Yeah, so we had an amazing symposium last week with 4 of our contributors to the volume that we're launching tonight, which is Provocations on Media Architecture. The volume brings together 21 thought leaders across academia, visual arts, sound art, architecture, public policy, to talk about the 4 themes of this year's MAB. And so the conversation centered around what it meant to contribute to this sort of theory-forward volume to discuss these 4 topics of equity and access, disengagement, civic, creative, commercial, and intermedial. And so we had Matnish Lapidus, who's a sound artist, Ekene Ajemwa, who's a professor at MIT, Melissa Mongia, who is a founder of Daily Tous les Jours, and Anna Wiesling, who is a sound artist at Miami University in Ohio. And it was a wonderful hour-long conversation, and looking forward to talking more about the publication tonight at the launch.
All right, thank you, Ian. Okay, up next, I'm gonna ask Mei Chu, one of our executive committee members, to come up and tell us a little bit about Sherry Dobbins' keynote. So Mei teaches at the Mel Hoppenheim School of Cinema and in the Department of Art History at McGill, and her research focuses on interactive and immersive, oh, sorry, Concordia. I got my Montreal schools mixed up. Her research focuses on interactive and immersive technologies in diverse museum and exhibit spaces across Canada, and how these technologies facilitate the material practice of nation and cultural citizenship. So welcome, Mei.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Verne, for the land acknowledgement this morning. So I had the pleasure of moderating Sherry Dobbins' talk, the Media Triangle, Civic, Commerce, and Creative. And the keynote focused on Sherry's experience as a director of Times Square Arts and creative director of Times Square Alliance between 2012 and 2016, where she also founded Midnight Moment, which is the world's largest and longest running digital art exhibition. And Sherry talked about a lot of things. I'll try to be quick. So one thing that came up was basically the complexity of the city as an exhibition space, especially when it involves media architecture and creating a quote-unquote domination event, which requires what Sherry calls a media triangle, which is basically an ecosystem imbricating creative, civic, and commercial spheres, all working together under, or with shared objectives, and what Sherry says allows them also an opportunity to be selfish and to take risks. Another topic touched on was this idea of authenticity. So Sherry defines this as the quality of being true to a site, its heritage and character. She also discussed how one balances authenticity with spectacle, and the kind of delicate negotiation when one might have multiple understandings of what authenticity can and should be when there are multiple stakeholders in the mix. And she stressed that there's no way for one work to represent authenticity, but that there's an importance in basically taking a long view when it comes to programming. Another really interesting thread that emerged was how one negotiates risk and safety. So Sherry discussed her role in both supporting but also mitigating risk. So for example, in facilitating risk when it comes to art and the artist's work or the artist's vision, but also thinking about safety and respect when it comes to the experience of the public. And Sherry stressed the importance of putting oneself on the ground and in the shoes of visitors. So taking into serious account things like scale, situatedness, attention, and even sensory experience. And then the discussion came to a close with Christy Kang's great question about what makes Sherry excited about the future of this field. And Sherry's answer centered on the essentially untapped potential of interactive content, and her belief that art, with its ability to create like counter images and to spur conversation, can actually be a kind of portal, she says, for people to insert themselves into these otherwise exclusionary spaces in real time. And that's it.
Thanks so much, May. Yeah, it was a really great keynote, and what's even better is that Sherry is going to moderate a symposium later today called The City as Exhibition Space. So I think that's going to be great because it's just going to weave that thread through that you really started with your keynote last week, and we'll have some people from civic, creative, and commercial spaces to elaborate on some of those ideas and themes that you brought up. So thank you. Okay, so next to talk about our paper session. We're gonna have another paper session tomorrow. We have 3 of our paper chairs here, Glenda, Joel, and Marius, and they're all sitting together. Isn't that great? They really like working with each other. I like working with them too. Marius is, I'm gonna bring up Marius this time because Marius was the moderator for the online paper session. Marius is a lecturer in design at the University of Sydney. His work focuses on interaction design and digital technologies in the city. He's a paper chair. He's also a workshop chair, so you're doing double duty. And yeah, let's get a recap of the paper session.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we had our first paper session last week already online. They're moderated together with Elise. And we had 4 papers in this session, and covering a lot of different themes around media architecture. We had a paper which looked particularly into awareness of other people's spatial experience, how it can foster empathy. And then in the discussion, we talked a lot about empathy and also how it relates to other some of the other works that were presented. There was one paper around the light installation and illuminations in solidarity of Ukraine, and also how it can be difficult if it just stays a gesture of solidarity. So this was a really interesting discussion. What are also problems and issues around media architecture? We had sound in, as a medium in media architecture, which was interesting, which I think we didn't cover as much the previous Biennale, so it was interesting to see that. And finally, also, how can we measure success in media architecture? What is successful media architecture, successful digital placemaking? And exciting to have more papers tomorrow. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Marius. And Marius also mentioned Elise Hodgson, who couldn't be here. She's in the UK, and she, actually I know her from, we used to work together at George Brown College, so together they did a wonderful job getting these papers together. I should note that I think I forgot to send it out in my daily email, but I'll send it out in the next one. We have the proceedings, so all of the papers, all of the explorations and prototypes that I can send out again today, so that if you want to reference any of those things, you can. And eventually they'll be published in the ACM Digital Library. Okay, moving on. Our next keynote was Ozair Saluji, and I don't think Malini's here today. I don't think she was feeling well. She's not here today, right? So we were talking about it though, and it's pretty much impossible to summarize this keynote. What I will say is you just have to watch it if you haven't. The recordings, I should mention the recordings for all the keynotes. You can find them on the schedule on our program page. But if you have some time, just watch it. It made us laugh. It made us cry. You know, by the end, we were just, you know, we felt like something had hit us. We didn't know what it was. We knew that it had changed the way that we approached our work, and knew that it would take some time for it to sink in. And for me, it's still sinking in. So that's all I'm going to say about this. Take some time and watch it if you can. Okay. I don't think I'll say much more about the explorations and prototypes. We don't have an explorations and prototypes chair here with us today, and I didn't make too many notes on it, but I'll just direct you back to the proceedings for you to look through the table of contents there and see if there's anything that catches your eye. But we'll have a in-person session tomorrow, so you'll get a sense of those kinds of works. There, I even put a little slide in there to remind myself to tell you about it. All right, the MAB Student Awards. So I'll do a quick recap of that. We gave out 7 awards. We had over 40 submissions. And yeah, it was a great event. We were able to bring people in online. We had our virtual set, just in case you haven't seen our beautiful virtual set that students from York Cinema and Media Arts created. And that was a real podium, though. A few people asked, like, how did you make that podium? And I was like, wood, metal? It was a lot of fun. And yeah, so as I said, we gave out a bunch of awards. They were all virtual awards, but the real ones we'll give them out tomorrow. The physical awards, the students all got a virtual representation of it. But it was great to have students from all over the world submit projects and then be able to say a few words about them. You can go on our website and you can check out all the nominees and winners. And yeah, I encourage you to do that. Okay. I got through that faster than I thought. I think I was maybe I was a little too serious with all the chairs and execs to keep it under 2-3 minutes, and you all did a wonderful job of summarizing things so quickly. But that just means we have more time to socialize and have some snacks. I didn't eat anything yet. I got to go eat something. So I'm going to enjoy that extra 15 minutes. And then we'll be back in here at 11 a.m. for our first keynote with Susan Blight, which I think, thinking about going back to what Verne talked about earlier, but the importance of language, and then, how I was thinking about how media architecture really is about sort of broadcasting, elevating language to an architectural scale. I think we're going to get a real sense of somebody working really critically and creatively with language with Susan Blight. So yeah, we'll see you back here at 11 a.m.